chair I go. This is top tier. Like,
Are we recording now?
yeah, because of how top tier this setup is.
It's insane.
I'm going to put a picture on our social, on the socials of the jankiest setup, because there are like Ryobi power blocks. There's laptops. You've got your laptop with my hat on it, so you don't have to look at your own face.
Yeah,
it's all.
But we're sitting in a rocking chair, and it's really sunny, and the birds are singing. Do you think the birds will pick up the recording?
I don't know. Maybe.
I
hope so.
Good.
Oh.
It's very fitting that we are in the woods because we're talking about some woods and a programme about some woods.
We are,
today, aren't we?
We are talking about in the woods. That we both, I think, clocked. It's not super new. It was out for a little while, I think. And then I saw it and was like, oh yeah, we should watch that thing. And then I can't remember what prompted me to watch more of it, but I'm glad I did. So it's Sandi Toksvig's Great Woodland, Great British,
because everything's Great British
something, so that it comes up because of SEO, right? So that when people search Great British, it comes up.
Yeah.
Thinking Channel 4 is on the ball. Great British.
We should do this with this episode.
The Great British. Okay, what's this episode called then? The Great British Podcast
about the Great British.
Oh, okay. We're going to keep
the
restoration
project, or whatever it's called.
Yes.
Yeah. Sandi Toksvig.
I realise we're like rushing into this, but we're slightly short on time today, aren't we? So we've not done our usual waffle gubbins, other than
we haven't.
To do the thing.
Do that in a minute.
Someone's like, yeah, I need the waffle though. Please warm up for the waffle.
No one's thinking that.
So the premise of the programme is that Sandi Toksvig has always had an interest in woodland. She has allegedly I say allegedly, it's like she saved up to purchase some woodland and also give herself a budget to restore the woodland.
She's been an ambassador for the Woodland Trust for like 30 years.
Yes. So she has bought a parcel of 15 acres of woodland inside a bigger plot of woodland, and then it's kind of 3 episodes exploring one. I don't even think you could call it a year. It's like it seems to be a sort of November to June kind of timeline. So there's a winter, a spring, and a summer, and it is, I would say, 50% of the program is about her, the people she gets in, and the actual like hands-on, like what is happening to the woodlands. And then I feel like it's about the other half was her relationship with the woods, her relationship with the finances, with like her personal story.
And it's very much like, yes, she's always been interested in woodlands and really nature connected. And she talks about that in the show, doesn't she? About her childhood in Scandinavia or wherever it was. But then she is actually a newbie to woodland management, which is what makes the programme, because it shows, like, you know, if anyone was lucky enough to love nature, love woods, and have some money to buy woodland, this is where they would start, and this is what they would, you know, so it's starting at a baseline knowledge of basically zero. So she's very honest about, you know, her and her wife are driving in the car, and they're like, we know that's a tree, but we don't know what species of tree that is. And I really like that about the show. I think it's quite different to other sort of nature-based wildlife programs where it's very much, this is an expert explaining things to you. This is like, we follow this person who you know and you trust and you like because she's a personality.
They're the hook that brings you into the world. I said to someone today, it reminded me of like the old River Cottage programs, like Hugh Fearnley-Whittingstall going off and being like, I'm going to try and, you know, it's all the premise, isn't it? Live sustainably down in Dorset. And then, you know, I'm going to see a brewer this week. I'm going to see a craftsperson this week. And like, actually, it's sort of them picking up the skills, but they are in place of the audience. They are us, taking us to the...
And I think, especially because, I mean, it is, like, even those shows are a little bit like, but in your dreams type thing, whereas I think something about her personality makes this show really like, that could be me, like, I don't know, you know, loads of money, and it's very realistic about the finances, isn't it, which is also very good. It's like they've kind of gone, what is the point of this show it's definitely got an educational edge to it. Like that seems to be like the driver, especially for Sandi, that she's kind of like promoting a particular message, but not making it all seem amazing and dreamlike, so that any old person just goes, oh yeah, I'll do that. It's very realistic about the difficulties of doing it.
Yes, I think so. So I think she gives herself a budget of 30,000 to restore 15 acres, and there is a bit in there where I think it's in the second episode, where she's talking and she says, I've come to the conclusion that anything to do with woodland management is about 500 quid. That tree needs to go, it's about 500 quid. Oh, that path and ride needs putting in, that's about 500 quid. And that was very... a lot of those shows wouldn't talk about the finance of things. They would just talk about the project and say, like, why does the woods need this? And then they would go and do it. But actually being honest about, like, when she's doing the pond and going, oh God, I really, she digs this huge nature pond and it's like best part of 10 grand. And she's like, I don't know if we can do it. And I really felt that there was that like thing that lots of people, I think, who manage woodland, whether it's specifically theirs or whether they manage it for somebody else, that feeling of knowing what you want to do if you had an unlimited budget. It's a bit like when we talk to our forest school leader students on the course and we say, could you write a management plan as if budget was no option, as if you had all the creative control? And I feel like you could really feel that in the program, where she was like, I really want there to be this big pond and I believe in it, but I cannot commit necessarily, to more and more and more, and to not shy away from that kind of thing of acknowledging that a lot of woodland management is like, what are you doing this year? Because your budget's going to have to go to do next year. Or, if you do focus on pond building, you are also saying that you're not going to be able to get professionals in to do this kind of tree clearing or, something else. So a lot of this show really hit me as someone who owns a woodland and for the last 10 years has been like doing woodland management on a budget. And that urge to be like, I could do everything myself. There's bits in there where she's like, I really felt like I could do it, but actually, this is beyond me.
She gets a lot of interesting people in who are experts in particular things, doesn't she?
Your busy mate. This episode of the Forest School podcast has been sponsored by Tensile. There aren't many more iconic images of childhood than a treehouse, but the realities of rented sites or running sessions in public spaces means a treehouse is just out of reach for many outdoor leaders. But what if that treehouse could fit in a bag, be set up in minutes, and pack away just as fast? That's exactly what the Tensile Stingray can deliver for your sessions. The Stingray is a treehouse in a bag. It's lightweight, portable, and strong enough to support up to 400 kilos. Whether you're dealing with rocky ground, steep slopes, or boggy areas, the Stingray doesn't need flat terrain. It suspends between 3 trees, giving you a perfectly level platform wherever you go. It's fully weatherproof too. The 70D Rainfly is rated to 5000 HH, so you're covered in rain, snow, or wind. And the built-in insect mesh keeps out bugs, with the covered porch underneath giving you even more storage and shelter. It takes just 5 minutes to set up with 3 ratchet straps and 2 poles. There's no complicated knot work or construction knowledge needed. Plus, the included tree protector straps means there's no impact on the site. When the session's done, it packs down into a single rucksack-sized bag, leaving no trace behind. If you're ready to take your outdoor sessions to the next level, grab a Stingray and give it a try. We're back. Technical interruption. Should we talk about some of the people that are in this then? So your best mate?
Pond.
Pete the Pond. He's such an interesting character.
Pond. Like I could become Pete the Pond if
Pete
you're
the
not
Pond,
careful. Because...
Pete the Pond looks like where I'm headed. In terms
really?
of just
I think it's where I'm headed.
Everything, beard grown out, hair grown out.
Parrot on shoulder.
Parrot on shoulder.
Did you notice the poo down his back as well?
Yes, he did acknowledge that. And so she does poo down my back.
Yeah.
Prosthetic leg.
Yeah.
So he's got an interesting walk as he kind of goes around.
Pete the Pond Pirate.
Pete the Pond the Pirate.
I know. I went into...
But so nice to have... Because I think that is one of the things that this show format does, is gives you a chance to meet these characters who are... And they do talk about this, who are super passionate about a super niche thing. And I really think that was something that the show highlighted. And even Sandi, I think at one point says... what are you smirking about?
It's actually these people who are really passionate, really niche. I was like, autistic people.
Not necessarily. You can have an interest without being autistic.
Yeah, but you know that kind of like, there's a guy who just does ponds. Maybe I could do that. I'm going to like go down an internet rabbit hole for ponds now for maybe about 2.5 hours. And like, you've been talking quite a lot about ponds because obviously we both watched this show. We're now looking at the woods where we work and going, oh, we could do this, we could do that. You've said quite a lot of things about ponds, and I've really restrained myself going, afraid that won't work, because in my 2.5 to 3 hours of internet research about ponds, I've discovered that you can't do that.
All right, wetland when.
Do you appreciate that I've held that in and haven't crushed your dreams? Sorry.
They make the point that because she meets lots of experts and lots of passionate people, you know, bat survey people and deer surveying people, horse-drawn forestry, and Sandi makes the point where she's like, there's a bit where she's like, you don't hear about that in careers fair. It was banker, manager, all these things. And who knew you could be a bat ecologist? Who knew you could be? And I was like, that's a big message to be getting out, that like, and you know, at the end when they're all having a big party, it's like, oh, like all of these skills come together to restore a woodland. You can't, it's a bit jack of all trades. And I mean that in not necessarily the best way, to try and manage a woodland on your own in isolation and be like, I will just read and I will just, you know, do whatever. So I really think the show did a good job there of highlighting, and I actually wish that more of, so there's a bit at the end where the local school comes and has a nature trip, and they have a wildlife like communicator who comes in and shows the children different bugs and is very passionate, and then
she's like an education specialist, isn't she? So...
And then they go and meet Pete the Pond, and he shows them the things, and he kisses all the animals, and it's like, oh, he's definitely going to catch something. He's like kissing newts and stuff. And I hope that they also had that conversation with the kids to be like, this is Pete's job. This is this educator's job. Here's a bat ecologist. This is their job, and sort of to. Because I think combined with the like, get kids into nature so they appreciate nature, is get kids into nature and show them that it's a viable career and a valuable career, not just a like passion project. Yes, you can be someone that loves nature quietly in your back garden, to be like, this can be what you do. I feel like I do that quite in a silly way when we're running sessions. Quite often if I catch a kid giving me side eye or giving me a look of like, because, you know, like, take yesterday, for example, where I was wearing a...
King of Chickens.
King of Chickens. I was wearing a chicken beanie that we bartered for at the last Forest School conference. I was wearing a rainbow tutu as a ruff, and then I had a leopard print thing underneath, and I was King of Chickens, and I was taken to a cafe, and somebody that was working with us on that day caught me and burst out laughing, and I was like, this is my career, actually. This is where I am. I get paid for this. How I pay my mortgage. When the gas bill comes, this is what
King of Chickens
pays the thing. King of Chickens. Yeah.
I wanted to ask. So you said it was interesting for you as somebody who owns some woodland and has had it for 10 years, and thinking about how you've managed the woodland. Is there anything, like watching the show and thinking back to like when you first got the woods? Is there anything that you now think, looking back, if I had watched that show, or if I have the knowledge that I have now, is there anything that you would have done purely like woodland management wise? I don't really mean like place-based design and stuff. I mean like purely for woodland management, like done things in a different order, or done anything differently, or prioritized anything differently. Say you had some extra cash as well.
Okay, so I think it would have been, for me personally, very dangerous to have had extra cash at that point.
You would have done,
because I am absolutely a person that goes a little bit of knowledge. I know I will go and I will throw. And also, when we bought the woods, my forest school work was just starting to pick up. I ran like 2 hours, 3 hours of work here a week, and the rest of it I was being a supply teacher. So I would have spent every hour available, and if I had money to buy crazy tools or crazy like fencing, like I would have done it, and I would have done it too fast. I actually think it was really beneficial for me to have to do things slowly and to have to see how the site worked out. And you know, you and I have often said that like every year you go, oh, I understand the woods now. I didn't before now. I do now. And then the next, idiot. Now I get and I see this in a different place. And like, I've just seen a tree growing today, like a little conifer tree that is 2 foot tall. Conifers are pretty slow growing. That's got to have been 4 or 5 years of growth. I've never seen it before. And we don't have a huge wood. Our bit is only about 3 acres. So I think for me, there's a value in having to do things slowly. I'm not saying there weren't times where I would have been like, oh God, I wish I had done that. But I think planning is something that really needs to be taken into account. So I think you either need a big team of experts where you can put together one cohesive plan and go, yep, the tree person's agreed that this is the right felling, the pond person agrees that this is the right pond, the play space design person. Do you know you can do a course in play space design? Do you know there's an online video course on the Forest School podcast website where you can do play space design? This guy's only saying 9.9 today. It's okay, because no one noticed the advert. I got it in real subtly. Smooth. Without a big team, if it's just me and my knowledge, or one person, I think doing things slowly has a benefit. Especially when you're doing a site for... So one of the big things that I think is different to the programme and our work is that Sandi's goal is just to make a wildlife reserve. And that has a very strong mindset to it and a very strong judgments about, in some ways, there's a lot of judgments going on about the correct ways to engage with nature. She has some run-ins with people that are running motorsports through it. She has some run-ins with people fly tipping, which I think the damage caused by motorsports is like, you can understand that. It's very logical. The fly tipping, again, very logical, and it's finding that like grey area, which is like, oh, if you really focus on nature, you can become very anti-human.
I did at one point, I think, say we need to manage this for nature and the creatures that live here, and that means keeping people out. I think she literally says a sentence like that at one point.
Yes, so she says that, and I really clocked this because the contrast really hit me. So that's it's like the closing talking head, but she says it. And in the background are all of the humans who've been in the woods to help restore it. So the bat ecologist is there and Pete the Pond is there, and they're all celebrating that they've restored this woodland. And then the talking head is, people need to stay out of this woodland. I'm like, I understand the sentiment, but I think that is a really mixed or really confused message to put out.
These people are allowed, but not these other people.
But doesn't even, it's almost like not acknowledging that those people have helped fix the woods, or that like they fixed it and then their job is done and they should now not go back. No, the bat ecologists will need to go in every year. The deer survey people will need to go in every year. This is woodlands and humans have a symbiotic relationship. It's not this is where we have I
was thinking about
spent a lot of our evolution.
Because I was thinking about the programme sort of being an educational thing for, we see parcels of woodlands for sale and anyone can buy woodland if you've got the money, and that an average human in our society now would look at some woodland and they go, okay, cool, now I just own that, without any kind of awareness or thought that they would need to do anything to it. Like you buy a house.
That's often one of the selling points on woodlands is, investment goes up, no need to manage.
Don't need to do anything. Unlike buying a house where you're like, okay, I'm going to need to fix the roof if it breaks or this kind of thing. And that we have lost those skills. Like this was knowledge and skills that loads of people would have had really not that long ago about how to manage woodland. And a lot of the things that humans would have done to maximise the benefit for themselves in the woodland, like coppicing, for example, is also beneficial for a lot of plants because of the light that hits the ground. So that symbiosis that you're talking about is definitely there. And as you say, wasn't quite highlighted in the programme, I don't think. Yeah,
but maybe that's Sandi's understanding. Do you know what I mean? Again, we're looking at it with our kind of view of maybe this is the way we think nature connection should be done, and maybe there's possibly some bits of woods that should just be, I'm playing devil's advocate slightly, but there are some areas where it's like, oh no one should go in there because of X, Y, Z, and some places where it's like, there's a balance to be had, and I think that's sometimes where forest school and outdoor education sites have to walk a line and walking the line or walking in the grey area is open to way more scrutiny. If you set up a nature reserve and you are like, this is the path, and people walk the path and you do all the things, you won't get much pushback from people because they understand it's very clear what you're doing. The grey area of, we want to preserve a woodland and make it healthy, we also want young people to be able to come and play here, opens up so many little bits where someone could go, well, you're not quite doing that right, and or why have you made that why have you made a choice to do a path rather than a rotating site, or well, have you considered that having a mud kitchen is not actually beneficial for this? And like the trade-off in that grey space means that we have to be much more agile, and every outdoor site that involves young people using it will be managed differently.
Yeah, and that's why hopefully if you are purchasing or getting access to woodland in order to do the kind of work that we do, you do some training which includes risk assessments for the site and for the ecological impact on the site, so that you actually are making those decisions with an awareness and a consideration of the long term, as opposed to just going, oh yeah, that'll be nice, that'll be fun, we'll do that. You know, you're aware, as you say, of the trade-offs and the possible repercussions of what you're doing.
It's there's a lot of, as well as the career highlighting in the show, I think there is also a lot of good and very and not too overt like representation in there. Sandi and her partner obviously represent certain demographics, and also having like female tree surgeons come in and highlighting their work, and you know, bushcraft and the outdoors for a lot of stuff is very like white male. You know, it would have been very easy, I imagine, to just get like Bear Grylls is going to come and do the education talk, and we've got big strapping butch man who does tree felling.
They definitely did that. I mean, she does talk about the female woodland tree surgeon person who does the horse stuff, and lots of footage of her wielding a chainsaw, and Sandi go, this is just so cool. And then Sandi and her wife,
I think the phrase she used is sexy.
Oh
no, that's sexy. Driving the horse, isn't it? When she starts she's driving the horse, and her wife, and she's watching her wife drive the horse. She's like, it's pretty sexy. It's pretty sexy.
Yeah. And then they Sandi and her wife go on a chainsaw course as well, which I think I was like, I'm really glad they showed that, because it shows that that's like a responsible thing to do, that you get a chainsaw, but you also learn how to do it, because anyone can. They just show you them buying it in a shop, and it's like, you could just buy that, go for it. And there is definitely something about representation, about watching somebody that you identify with in some way doing a thing. So not just telling you they're doing a thing, but you are literally seeing them learn how to do it, which makes you go, okay, that would be the steps that I would do if I was going to do that, and I could. I thought that was really, really good. And then it was interesting then that she does kind of go, right, I can't do this by myself. I actually can't take on that extra parcel of woodland.
Yes, the Woodland Trust asked if she can take on another, I think it's 24 acres.
And she basically is on the brink of a meltdown, isn't she? That's just like trying to deal with the motocross people and the fly tipping and stuff. And then not only that, she then goes, right, I do need some more human power, and puts out a call to the local community, and ends up with a bunch of blokes who their name is really cool.
It's the branch managers.
The branch managers, yeah.
But did you? What's the runner-up is like? Toksvig masculinity, which I
yeah. And so she does literally confront that and say, right, this is a bunch of men, and they are lovely men, and they have come, and this is what they're doing, and it's been a great afternoon. And so it's kind of acknowledged in the forefront, I think, a lot in the show. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Machinery, or wearing clothing that like restricts your movement but it keeps you safe, and all of that kind of stuff. It's like I thought it was interesting to acknowledge that, because the pendulum could have swung the other way to be like, here's all this great representation, and we're not even going to acknowledge any kind of like physical hardship or, you know, whatever else, and just be like, we're tough with power, and actually to be like, that's really hard doing the thing. There's the other bit that I really wanted to say connected with me was, there's a bit where she is walking around, I think the fly tipping, and she is talking about, she's almost in tears, and she's talking about like, you can't explain the relationship that you, as somebody who's like looking after a space and spending so much time in it, that you end up having, that you cannot, without being like super woo woo and waffly and like an overprotective parent. We've had this before where like other people, like, you know, groups come in and use the site in different ways, or like something, you know, and I have such an emotional connection to like every tree that's in here and every little bit of the space and every little, and it was really great to see that acknowledged, as where she was like, I've got names for quite a lot of these trees, and the fly tipping and the motorsport coming through wasn't just a logical like logical response of like, they've churned up the dirt and so the nitrogen's all going to be messed up and these roots are coming out. She kind of was like, this hurts. These are, and that's often how I feel when stuff is moving. Oh, it's making, well, that's very weird, isn't it? Is like, it hurts seeing the living things that you spend a lot of time with treated in ways, and the only reason that they're treated in different ways is like, I've been here 10 years. I have written management plans. I have moved wood chip over tree roots. I have done whatever else, and then like to someone else, it's like, oh yeah, I was running the trolley over here to get the stuff in. I don't know how to explain it other than like I was really pleased to see that emotional connection to it represented in the show.
Yeah.
But counter to that, I think they really they could have done more. I don't know how you could have done it with only 3 episodes. I'm presuming they had a pitch and they said it would be this long and this is how you see the changes, but when you watch stuff on like YouTube and it's on like double speed, or they're like the reels of people being creative, like dremeling work or chainsaw carving or whatever else, and because it has to fit in a 10-15 second reel, you watch someone with a chainsaw go like bzz, 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 it's a bear. And or like the big one that gets me is always lathe work. With stuff spinning around and because they have to speed it up, then you look at it and I go, that's so achievable. That's amazing. And what's that? I could turn a bowl out in, I know it's slowed down, but in my head I'm like, it's probably only 20 minutes to make a bowl. How lovely. And there's an element of that in this, which is like showing winter and then jumping 3-4 months to spring and being like, we're back in the woods and doing the thing. And as someone that like has to go into the woods for those 4 months, I was really like, you've really undersold the bum and sticks. The bum and sticks of it all. To be like, but maybe that's because they're running a nature reserve. That is how the ebb and flow of work works. Pre-winter, early winter is like, yep, go and fell all of that, and then you leave it, and then you are coming back in the spring. But I really felt like, if we're talking about this maybe being an educational resource for people who are like buying a woodland, that there could have been more to acknowledge, even some like a montage of shots of like, it's been a wet and dreary winter, and clips of being like, here's a storm, here's a really windy day, here's a really, because if you were about to go and purchase some woodland and you just watch this program, you might get the impression that like, it's a cold crisp day in winter and then spring.
Is there anything since watching the show now that you think, ooh, I'm going to go for that, like a new angle, like a different aspect of management? Or well,
I think you and I have both. It's prompted me to clear lots more holly out. Interestingly, we had already decided to clear more holly out before Christmas because we recently asked for donations to plant juniper trees in the woods. We had a woodland management consultancy team come round and look at the woods, and they suggested putting juniper in as a year-round windbreak, which is like, that's exactly what we need. And And then, highlighting like, oh, yeah, there is actually a lot of holly in the woods. I think you and I are clearly on different levels now that I'm aware of all your rabbit holing, but, that we could do with at least one more pond in our little area. But then, it was very interesting. So we talked about ponds, and we talked about a place even for a pond, and I was like, it could be in there, and it's right in the middle of a big bluebell patch. And I went and walked. You said we would want to go and see it, so we couldn't fence it off completely. It's just not feasible. I was like, you're right, but maybe we could do a path in here. And I sort of found a quiet moment this week while the kids were nearby, and I wandered into because the bluebells aren't up yet, and I wandered in, and I was next to a very big old beech tree, and I was like, oh, I haven't seen you for a while. Hello, how are you doing? And I was like, no, we can't be here. This is like just stepping out. So a lot of our boundaries are just done by Christmas trees, but that area there where we were talking about putting the pond is possibly one of the first areas that we bordered off with trees and went, nope, bluebells grow there, that's very special, we'll keep that thing. So stepping over that and in, and I was like, oh no, this isn't my space.
I was going to say also that so that's where we have what we call the river, where when it rains we've got a kind of
the meandering bit down the hill.
So we were talking about a pond being at the bottom of that, but in my rabbit holing, it was like, you may wish to do that, and that would be great, but you haven't thought about soil erosion and silt continually flowing down,
just filling up the
pond will just fill up. And my garden ponds are at that state at the moment, and I have to like dredge them all. And then you're thinking of like getting all the mud out of all the creatures that are living there, and it's just like really hard.
That's a very valid point. That's good.
Yes,
it's
but we'll find another space. I've been thinking about because she talks a lot about the ride that she puts through, so it's that kind of weird head moment that she has where she's like, in order to save trees and to promote other species, I need to kill trees, I need to fell trees and thin this out and make a ride so that light will hit the forest floor and greater
people
diversity
listening
of
might
plants.
not know what a ride is. A ride is like a path, but it's kind of often scalloped one side left and right, so that small things like butterflies can sort of zigzag left right and go through the woods with a bit of cover.
And you get different field layer species, so different plants at different heights and different areas of shade. And so I was really thinking about that, and I was like, where can we really promote plant growth, wildflowers, etc. So that's kind of on my
wildflowers
radar.
Has been a thing for a while, and I thought it was interesting that they didn't acknowledge that in the show to kind of talk about like it's a north-facing hill. There are biological limits to.
They had a meadow as well, didn't they?
They did have the meadow,
like
but which is obviously lovely.
And they planted wildflowers there.
Yes, but acknowledging on a woodland management front to be like it's a north-facing hill. There's only so much is going to grow. There's only so much that's going to be that shade tolerant. It's going to be that wind tolerant. Interesting. They didn't talk too much about any sort of big species change like ash or I know larch dieback is a thing, and also people have come here to check on things recently of like chestnut dieback is also apparently coming. So interesting that they didn't talk about those things, but maybe they did, but they got cut. I think it's a very
rehoming animals they talk about.
Yes, do you want to?
So gorgeous, wasn't it? So she goes to they go to a wildlife rescue centre and then say, we've got Woodland if you ever need to release rehabilitated animals.
It's a wildlife one that they try and just get people, the animals in and out. They're like, okay, this thing is
so they release 3 young tawny owls in their woods. It's amazing.
This episode of the Forest School podcast is brought to you by Chris Holland's Nature Connection. Are you looking to deepen your connection to the natural world? We're thrilled to share the Plant of the Week collection by Chris Holland, a long-time friend of the show and someone we've been lucky enough to call a peer and friend for many years now. This beautifully crafted A4 book is packed with 54 plant profiles, seasonal insights, poems and proverbs that bring each plant story to life. It's a brilliant resource for anyone on their Forest School leader training journey or for sharing with parents and support staff who want to expand their nature knowledge and feel more confident in the great outdoors. What's more, it's perfect for forest school sessions, helping you to explore plants likely growing right near your site or home, all while nurturing curiosity and connection with nature. Each profile even includes QR codes for instant access to even more information, ideal for on-the-go learning. Chris has poured decades of passion and expertise into this collection, and we know it'll be a valuable companion in your work or play in nature. And because he's a friend of the show, we've got something very special for you to use. Use the discount code FORESTPOD at checkout and save 15% when you order through the link in our show notes. Don't miss out. Whether you're a seasoned forest school leader or just starting your journey, the Plant of the Week collection is a treasure trove of inspiration and knowledge. So head to the link in the show notes, grab your copy, and remember to use the code FORESTPOD for 15% off. Thanks again to Chris for sponsoring this episode. Okay. So closing bits. Sometimes when we talk about books, we talk about like, oh, you should read this right at the start of your practice. You should read this after you've been doing it for a few years. If you were going to recommend this program to someone, because you asked me if I wish I'd watched it right at the start, what do you think? Where would you?
I think I would recommend this actually near the start, in terms of it being, with all the caveats that we've said about money, time, it being hard, it being quite a realistic portrayal in some ways of like, you could do this, and maybe you could also run a forest school or do your forest school leader training, or, you know, maybe you work in a completely different field right now, but you watch this program and it just sort of ignites the spark in you and you're like, yeah, I want to be part of that. I want to change careers or, embark on a project similar to that. So I would say that it might be a little bit of a tinderbox to some people's spark. But it was also useful to watch it now, like 9-10 years in, and to go, oh yeah, ponds.
Yeah.
So I'd say anytime.
I think I would almost recommend it as like 12 months before you think you're going to buy a woodland. I think it would be a really interesting, like, oh, excuse me. You know, like if you're like when you're pregnant, sometimes I've never been pregnant. When someone is pregnant, sometimes in a hospital appointment, they'll be like, oh, this video is being shown to parents this year, you know, and it describes XYZ or whatever. If it was like, yeah, before you buy a woods, you need to watch one of these shows, and, you know, and then have a chat with one of our advisors. And also, I really thought that was interesting, like, in terms of, you know, you said, like, if you buy a house and you know, like, there's a bit of, like, when you buy a house, I think, where you get a gut sense of, like, that roof looks like it's going to go, oh, I can see a crack in that chimney, But I wonder what the cycle is of, like, us not having the skills. So when people go and look at woodlands that are for sale, they don't have the assessment skills to know if it's a healthy or unhealthy woodland. The people selling it rarely, unless it's good,
they're not going to
flag something up and be like,
hey, like an estate agent.
Yeah, that's the thing. You don't have a duty to sell a woodland and say, actually, here's the management plan. The larch would need to come out.
Exactly.
You would be taking on XYZ, or even to say, like, in the adjacent plot, there is, you know, something. So something interesting there about, like, all of the onus is on the buyers with woodlands. But I think it was a very enjoyable show.
Yeah. Great. Definitely recommend. Channel 4.
Yeah. Channel 4.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for joining me. I hope this recording has come out. This is our first time setting up in Janky Woods, so fingers crossed it's all come out all right.
Yes.
And if it works, then next time we can add even more stuff, and we'll do some surprise students, and we've had some more submissions for the wasn't on the job description.
Yep.
And so, yeah, see you next time. Stay wonky.
Song Wars. We've promised each other Song Wars at some point soon.
Yes. This will come.
Cool.
Okay. Bye.